over. It's not like we're playing 1 point. You're calling the score like 6 seconds after the point is over.
Yeah, she's 100% right.
During Coco Gauff's first-round match at the 2023 U.S. Open, a WTA umpire accused her of playing too fast, while her opponent, Laura Siegemund, repeatedly let the shot clock run all the way down to 0 without facing proper penalties. Coco walked over to the umpire and demanded to know how that could possibly be fair, sparking one of the most controversial officiating moments in recent tennis history. The bias was so obvious that even the crowd began to turn against the umpire before the realization set in that something wasn't right. This raised a serious question for fans watching around the world. Was the umpire corrupt, incompetent, or simply overwhelmed in the moment? To understand why this incident caused such outrage, we need to break down exactly what happened, because the details make the situation far worse than it initially appeared.
Having 30-ball rallies, it's 2 balls. She's going to me. I'm not going. I'm going a normal speed. Ask any ref here. I go at medium pace speed. But she can't. It's every single point.
Coco Gauff was facing Laura Siegemund in the first round of the 2023 U.S. Open, playing on home soil in New York with a packed stadium fully behind the American star. Coco entered the match as the clear favorite, not just to win that round, but as a legitimate contender for the entire tournament. However, the match quickly became uncomfortable. Coco dropped the first set, while Siegemund began using every possible tactic to slow the match down. In tennis, the shot clock exists for a reason. Players are allowed 25 seconds between points to serve. That's the rule, and it's meant to keep matches flowing and prevent deliberate stalling. Yet Siegemund repeatedly let the clock expire, again and again. According to Coco, it happened 4 separate times. Despite that, the umpire, Mariana Veljovic, issued only a single time violation, allowing the behavior to continue unchecked.
Okay, well said. As if she didn't have the crowd on her side enough.
Well, she spoke her piece.
Meanwhile, Coco Gauff was serving at what she described as a completely normal speed, a steady, medium pace. She wasn't rushing between points. She wasn't trying to surprise her opponent or gain an unfair advantage. She was simply playing tennis at a reasonable tempo. And somehow, that became an issue. Laura Siegemund later complained that Coco was serving extremely fast, even unreasonably fast. Let that sink in for a moment. Playing at a normal pace became grounds for complaint, while repeatedly letting the shot clock hit 0 was tolerated by the umpire. That's not proper officiating. That's favoritism. It's either incompetence or corruption, and neither explanation reflects well on the official. Coco finally reached her breaking point in the final set. She walked up to the chair and confronted umpire Mariana Veljovic directly. She pointed out that Siegemund had let the clock run down 4 times and received just 1 time violation. "How is this fair?" Coco asked. "I'm going at normal speed. I go at a medium pace." That wasn't a tantrum. That wasn't disrespect. It was a legitimate question about why the rules were being applied unevenly. Coco wasn't asking for special treatment. She was asking for equal treatment. And the fact that she even had to ask says everything about how poorly this match was being officiated. Eventually, the umpire did take action, issuing Laura Siegemund a point penalty for another time violation. That penalty gave Coco a 5-1 lead in the deciding set. And then came the most unbelievable part. Siegemund walked up to the umpire and complained that Coco was serving too fast. "She's serving extremely fast, almost unreasonably fast, and I'm always here, and one time I go to the towel," Siegemund said. So according to her logic, Coco playing at a normal pace was unfair, but repeatedly violating the shot clock was acceptable because she needed to use the towel. That's not how the rules work. That's not how any of this works. The fact that the umpire even entertained this complaint is astonishing. There is no rule against serving fast. There is no requirement to wait beyond giving an opponent reasonable time to get set. The shot clock exists specifically to prevent the kind of stalling Siegemund was doing. Yet somehow, Coco following the rules became the controversy instead of Siegemund breaking them. Siegemund managed to rally after that point penalty and pulled the score back to 5-4, which had to make Coco nervous. She was just one game away from a humiliating first-round exit at her home Grand Slam. But Coco held her nerve, served out the match, and won. And then she went on to win the entire tournament, claiming her first Grand Slam title at just 19 years old. But here's what makes this whole situation so infuriating. Coco almost didn't win that US Open because an umpire either couldn't or wouldn't enforce the rules fairly. If Coco had lost that match after getting into her own head due to the unfair officiating, her entire career trajectory changes. No US Open title. No confidence boost from winning a slam. No momentum moving forward. All because one player's repeated rule violations were treated as less important than another player's completely legal pace of play. When you look at Mariana Veljovic's performance in this match, the record is damning. Siegemund let the clock hit zero at least 4 times and received just one time violation, a 25% enforcement rate on a clear, objective rule. The shot clock either reaches zero or it doesn't. There's no judgment call involved. It's visible to everyone.
Open this set.
I know, it's the rules. It's not allowed to sit.
Well, Siegemund must have said something.
Even more troubling, Veljovic didn't take meaningful action until Coco confronted her directly. And even then, her response seemed reluctant. The point penalty that was eventually issued was long overdue based on the number of violations that had already occurred. That's not simple incompetence. That's a conscious decision not to enforce the rules until public pressure forces your hand. The crowd was overwhelmingly on Coco's side throughout the match. Fans were booing Siegemund's stalling tactics and openly supporting Coco's complaints to the umpire. They understood exactly what was happening, even if the official in the chair refused to acknowledge it. That crowd reaction likely played a role in the umpire finally acting, because appearing blatantly biased in front of a hostile stadium is not a good look for anyone trying to maintain authority, but Laura Siegemund doesn't come out of this looking good either. After the match, she had the audacity to complain about how the crowd treated her. She claimed the fans showed her no respect and treated her like a cheater and a bad person. She insisted she never did anything against the audience and said she remained calm throughout the entire match.
First time I'm crying in a press conference. As a tennis player, you are a performer. You owe the people. You owe the kids that watch. And I'm just a bit, at the end of the day, I go home and I can look at myself and I can say, I did a great job. But did I get anything from the people for that? Even less than a zero, because they treated me bad. Like, they treated me like I was a cheater, like I was, trying, sneaky ways to win this match or something. They treated me like I was a bad person. But, there are people who are throwing rackets, who are screaming, who are, making bad gestures toward the audience. I did not one moment in the whole match, and there was a lot of tension going on. Not one moment I did anything. I was just slow. And that's... That's something in the rule. I get my time violation. That's fine. Yeah. No, I don't know.
Except she absolutely did things that justified the crowd's reaction. Laura Siegemund repeatedly violated the shot clock. She used every stalling tactic available to disrupt Coco Gauff's rhythm. And on top of that, she complained about her opponent playing at a completely normal pace, as if that was somehow unfair. Those are not the actions of someone competing honestly. Those are the actions of a player using gamesmanship to gain an unfair advantage. And then to turn around and play the victim over how the crowd responded? That's rich. The crowd reacted exactly the way anyone would based on how that match was played. If you don't want to be seen as a cheater, don't repeatedly break the rules. If you don't want to be booed, don't engage in obvious time-wasting that every person in the stadium can clearly see. Siegemund later said she never threw her racket, never screamed, and never made bad gestures toward the crowd. Fine, that's the bare minimum of professional behavior. That doesn't earn you a free pass to break the rules for an entire match. The crowd wasn't reacting to her attitude, They were reacting to her tactics, and they were completely justified in doing so. Coco admitted after the match that she doesn't like confrontation and wasn't even sure whether she should speak up at first, until the violations kept happening. That shows remarkable restraint. Most players would have exploded much earlier. Instead, Coco stayed composed, calmly stated her case to the umpire, and let the facts speak for themselves, and the fact that she was ultimately proven right when the umpire finally began enforcing the rules only validates that Coco was justified in speaking up. This also wasn't an isolated incident. Coco has had multiple high-profile issues with officiating. During her 2024 French Open semifinal loss, she broke down in tears over an incorrect call on a crucial point. At the Olympics, another wrong decision led her to publicly demand a rule change after a defeat. There's a clear pattern here of Coco being hurt by officiating mistakes at critical moments, and it's starting to feel less like coincidence and more like a systemic problem within tennis officiating. Going back to the 2023 US Open, the instant regret that must have hit umpire Mariana Veljovic after this match had to be overwhelming. She officiated one of the most controversial matches of the tournament. She showed either clear bias or clear incompetence in how she enforced the shot clock. She created a situation where a young American star nearly lost in the first round on home soil, not because of poor play, but because the umpire failed to do her job. And then Coco went on to win the entire tournament, making that poor officiating look even worse in hindsight. Imagine being Veljovic, watching Coco lift the US Open trophy, knowing you almost prevented that moment from ever happening. Knowing your failure to enforce basic rules nearly derailed an iconic career milestone. That's the definition of instant regret. Of course, the WTA never publicly addressed this officiating controversy, which is typical. Tennis organizations are notoriously bad at holding officials accountable. Players get fined for racket smashes or emotional outbursts, but umpires who miss calls or enforce rules unevenly rarely face consequences. That creates a culture where bad officiating continues because there's no real incentive to improve. The Siegmund situation also highlights a broader issue in tennis. Gamesmanship and time wasting are tolerated far more than they should be. Players stall between points, abuse towel breaks, and stretch injury timeouts, while umpires let it slide because enforcing the rules creates controversy. But that creates an unfair playing environment for athletes who simply want to play tennis at a normal pace. Coco Gauff serving at a medium pace should never be controversial. It should be the standard. The fact that it became a complaint shows how backward tennis culture has become when it comes to pace of play. The shot clock was introduced specifically to eliminate this subjectivity. But if umpires refuse to enforce it consistently, the clock becomes meaningless. The crowd's reaction during this match was actually revealing. Fans understood fairness even when the officials didn't. They could see Siegmund stalling. They could see the umpire ignoring it. And they made their feelings known. That crowd pressure likely saved Coco's tournament by forcing the umpire to finally act. But players should never have to rely on crowd support to receive fair officiating. Rules should be enforced consistently, regardless of who's playing or where the match is held. That's the most basic expectation in professional sports, and tennis fails at it far too often. The 2023 US Open first round was a perfect example. The fact that Coco won the tournament despite this officiating disaster speaks volumes about her mental toughness. Most 19-year-olds would have crumbled under that pressure, down a set, arguing with the umpire, and facing an opponent using every stalling tactic possible. But Coco regrouped, won that match, then won 6 more to claim the title. That US Open victory established her as a legitimate star. It wasn't luck. It was earned through 7 rounds of elite tennis under enormous pressure. And yet, it nearly didn't happen because an umpire couldn't enforce basic rules. Mariana Veljovic probably doesn't lose sleep over this match. Most officials move on quickly.
But she should think about it.
She should think about how close she came to ruining one of the best stories in recent tennis history. She should think about why she waited so long to enforce a clear, objective rule. And she should think about how her officiating looked to millions of viewers around the world. That instant regret should last, not just for this match, but as a reminder that officiating matters, fairness matters, and equal treatment under the rules matters. Veljovic failed on all 3 counts during Coco Gauff's first-round match at the 2023 U.S. Open. And the fact that Coco won the tournament anyway does not excuse that failure. An umpire allowed Laura Siegemund to violate the shot clock 4 times while penalizing Coco for playing at a normal pace, creating one of the most biased officiating performances in recent tennis memory. Coco had to walk up to the chair and demand fair treatment before the umpire finally started doing her job. The regret became undeniable when Coco won the entire tournament, proving just how close that official came to destroying an iconic moment. Smash like and subscribe for more breakdowns of officiating disasters that almost changed sports history.